Today, I'm going to present what we had the impact from the Fukushima, and particularly the Korean government in 1917 to take up the anti-nuclear the path for the energy policy. So I'll read the paper I prepared. President Moon Jae-in won in presidential election on May 9, 2017, after former President Park Geun-hye was impeached and imprisoned due to the various irregularities during her term of service. People's mass movement of candlelight gave vital impact to Park government. In this sense, President Moon government declared himself a candle government, implying that it should properly respond to the demands of democracy, fairness, and justice. His pledge for alternative energy policy and the nuclear power plant policy was one of his response to candle citizens' demands. On June 19, 2017, President Moon Jae-in, only 1 month and some more days after he assumed the presidential status, declared Korea to take a great step toward a nuclear-free energy regime. He declared to repeal the nuclear-based energy regime and to take great step toward the nuclear-free path. He further declared to cancel all the new nuclear power plant construction plans and would not allow the extension of design lifetime of the existing all the new nuclear power plants. He also declared to take process of social consensus to determine whether to cancel or continue the construction of new nuclear reactors. So-called, we call it the Shingori number 1 and 2, whose construction process was 25% completed. The existing and the new power plant will only one by one terminate the design life approximately by 2080, and finally graduate to the age of nuclear power age. In his declaration, President Moon promised to decrease the portion of nuclear power, which took a 30% share of the all power generation, to 10% by 2030. And during the period of LNG as the energy source would increase from 20 to 37, and renewable energy sources from 5 to 20% by 2030. In order to make a decision on the Shingori 5 and 6, the former, he temporarily stopped construction for 3 months, and during this period, he commissioned the Citizens Consensus Committee to carry out deliberate discussion to decide whether the construction of reactors would be canceled or continued. During the period of 3 months, the committee organized a citizens panel to discuss and examine the economic cost benefit and the safety problems. The consensus conference finally arrived at the conclusion to continue the construction of the plants. The deliberate process was an important experiment to decide any public project. However, it is very undeniable that the President shifted his responsibility to the citizens. Korea's nuclear power plants is as follows. We have at the moment 24 reactors in operation, and 4 reactors under construction and 2 reactors made inactive. Nuclear power covers around 30% of power generation. Based on President Moon's roadmap, Korea's nuclear power plants will increase to 28 reactors and will decrease afterward as existing reactors come to end by the design life. In December 2017, government canceled the 6 new nuclear reactors construction plan and decided to stop extension of the design life of 10 old reactors. This roadmap to phase out nuclear power is considered extremely moderate and take a long time for parties concerned to adapt themselves to the shift to energy policy. This denuclearization policy was announced when he attended the ceremony to terminate Korea's first nuclear power reactor, Korea 1, which began to generate power in 1978, and its design life come to end in 2007, and government of the time extended the design life for 10 years. Actually, the Fukushima disaster gave an immense impact on Koreans because Korea had more than 20 nuclear power reactors at that time, and their safety problems occurred from time to time. Even the Korean environmental movement had long engaged in anti-nuke movement, general public did not actively respond to the nuclear power issues so much, except residents in the neighborhood of nuclear power plants or nuclear waste disposal site. Fukushima disaster caused by explosion of the nuclear reactor gave extensive impact on Koreans. Anti-nuclear power movement revived many women's groups, cooperatives, kindergarten parents in particular, actively participate in anti-nuclear movement and monitor the radioactive contamination of their foods. After Fukushima, anti-nuclear opinion sharply increased in Korea. According to the IPSOS survey, 66% of Koreans were opposed to nuclear power. And Korea's opposition was the highest among the surveyed 24 countries. It is also reported that Koreans changed their attitude by 26% from non-nuke to anti-nuke opinion. Some other surveys showed that 89% of Koreans refused to buy Japanese goods, as it was assumed that Japanese sea were contaminated by radioactivity. Many Koreans even now refuse to eat the fishes and shells from Japanese waters. General public in Korea began to suspect the safety of the nuclear power plants. In 2012, there was an extent of a blackout of the emergency power generator, which in reality equally was one of the most important causes of the Fukushima accident. Since accident was disclosed, citizens' distrust toward the nuclear power aggravated. In 2013, the scandal was disclosed in a nuclear plants in Korea in which the safety test report was publicated. In addition, earthquake occurred in Gyeongju near the nuclear power plants in Southeast Korea, which frightened the residents to associate with the Fukushima earthquake and tsunami. Election times in 2012 and 2014, the anti-nuclear pledges were put up by the many opposition parties and became an option for electorate to choose parties. There emerged the voluntary parliamentarians groups in National Assembly to study denuclearization and energy transition. In response to the anti-nuclear movement's questionnaires, except the conservative ruling party, all parties agreed to stop promoting new nuclear power plants, stop promoting new nuclear power plants, to close old and ineffective reactors, to enact nuclear-free energy basic law. These parties also agreed to close Korea 1 and Walsung 1 reactors immediately and to graduate nuclear power plants by 2030 to 2040. However, faced with opposition from the techno-scientists and the nuclear-related business, opposition party, and the major journalism, Moon government could not further proceed the nuclear-free policies. After resuming the construction of Shingori 5 and 6 as a result of a decision by the series consensus process, the denuclearization policy drastically lost its momentum. Agendas for denuclearization went astray. Moon government abandoned any actions on reprocessing the nuclear waste, disposal of high-level nuclear waste, export of nuclear power plants to the foreign countries, without which nuclear-free energy regime cannot be materialized. For instance, in order to change their energy policies, it is essential to raise electricity prices, but they did not examine that at all. That means Moon's government followed what is easy way to address. Faced with a strong criticism from the pro-nuclear power camp, Moon government does not properly cope with such hard headwind. There is no presidential secretary in charge of defending and promoting the denuclearization policy. Ruling party in the National Assembly did not stand up to take action to enact laws and rules to support denuclearization policies. NGO movement, except a few small organizations, do not raise strong voices against government. Many government, Moon government regard itself as government of a candle movement in 1916 to 17. NGOs generally have stood in alliance with the government. Many NGO officials and activists were recruited by the government. Thus, denuclearization gradually and definitely lost its momentum. After Paris Convention on the Climate Change in 2015, Korean government also responded to announce carbon neutral targets. By 2050, government took major actions already to stop some coal-fired power plants, replace them with the LNG power plants, and support the renewable energy project. Now, government, business, citizens movement, and scholars go together to promote carbon reduction campaign. In this situation, the pro-nuclear power groups raised the voices to repeal denuclearization policies, promote nuclear power without which carbon neutrality would not be achieved. Korean government began to develop innovative small modular reactor, SMR, which is also the essential nuclear power. In this situation, nuclear industry began to revive, pursue the export of nuclear power plants to foreign countries. When the President Moon visited the United States in May, both presidents agreed to develop SMR and export them to the third countries. In short, there is no one in this government who seriously pursued the denuclearization path. Disruptive process of denuclearized energy regime is also undergoing in Taiwan too. Memory of Fukushima disaster is really eroded in our minds. Next year, we are going to have the presidential election. There are some candidates now we have, but no one assert denuclearization. So it is our portion, civil society, to move again. I'm going to finish. Thank you very much.